to FUSO Talks, Inspiring Change. It's the third FUSO Talk event that we are having today. We started about a year ago with the first edition. The objective was the same as today, to provide you with some insights to topics that have nothing to do with your everyday job, but that can inspire you to keep thinking, to start thinking about things, to get inspired, to do things differently, because that's what managers should do and have to do every day. So today, third edition, we have a new topic. It's passion. And passion is not only one of the 5 values that we are based on at Daimler that are our values. Passion is also something which I think is a really important topic for you as a manager. It's for your self-motivation, to get you motivated to do your everyday job. And it's something that you urgently need to have other people following you. Passion is like the essence of convincing people to do things with pride and power. For that, we have 2 very interesting speakers today from totally diverse backgrounds, and I would like to introduce them to you. The first speaker is a well-known musician and conductor from here, Japan, working all over the world with some of the most renowned orchestras. And he is, little wonder, very fond and a real expert on the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, so a German composer. He even founded the Bach Collegium in Japan.
Let's welcome on stage, everybody, Masaaki Suzuki. It's an honor to have you here. Well, let's move forward to our second speaker. He's from Australia and he lost his arm to cancer at the age of only 3 weeks. But this did not stop him from becoming first an expert in martial arts and second a mountaineer who even managed to climb the Mount Everest as the first disabled person.
Please welcome on stage Paul Hockey. So all set for an exciting event, but before I get to interview these 2 gentlemen, I would like to follow the tradition that we had started with the first FUSO Talks and the second as well, to have on stage our President and CEO of MFDBC, the head of Daimler Trucks Asia, Mr. Mark Listoseya, to give you a welcome speech. Please come on stage. Stage is yours.
So, ladies and gentlemen, now the third time to be here with you to host exceptional characters. So from my side, also a very warm welcome. What do you think is the most important in the company? What do you think? Anyone wants to say that? Come on. Yes. It's the people. So you are leaders. And you are their potential leaders. So what is a leader doing? A leader is giving direction. A leader is taking responsibility. A leader is a trouble counter. When something goes wrong, a leader has to stand up. We don't want to have leaders who, when it's getting really rough, are stepping aside. That's not a leader. Aria-san, we don't like that, isn't it? We want to have leaders who are there for the people. You're not managers. Never say, I'm a manager. If you're a manager, you manage things. But nobody wants to be managed. You don't want to be managed by me. You want to be led, but you don't want to be managed. So leaders must have a connection to people. So when you have to lead people, when you have to speak people, when you have to give people direction, what do you need from these people that they accept you? What? Trust, exactly. If you're not trusted, nobody will follow you. To gain trust, you must be authentic. You must be authentic. And how can you be authentic? How can you be authentic? How can you be really in something? You have to be connected to what you do. If you're connected to what you do, you create some passion for it, where passion is also a very significant part of your leadership. If you don't have passion for your job, if you don't have passion for the people which you lead, these people will never create trust to you. And that's, for today, Mr. Nyon, the part and the focus of the discussion, what, from my point of view, is most important. The freedom of mind, the freedom of your choice, and then the passion comes. Then you're really in the topic. Now we go to the gentleman. Thank you.
You're an expert on Johann Sebastian Bach, a German composer. How does a young Japanese man in the middle of the 20th century gets in contact with Baroque music and gets fond of it and such an expert? How did that happen?
I always feel that I was caught by Bach. And, well, of course, my parents used to be the semi-professional musician, and they were very much fond of music and Bach music as well. But probably that when I was a middle school boy, I started playing organ in the church service, and then that was a very good motivation for me, to start. And I immediately tried to play all the Bach's organ music, but still I had only one small harmonium, so it was not possible. So that was a very good, opportunity for me to start this kind of music.
How did you become a conductor? Was there some kind of a feel of you that you could lead teams, that you could lead orchestras? Is there a need to lead in you?
Actually, that is very closely connected to the subject today. But in my case, the conductor, being a conductor is a kind of result of my musical career, because I wanted to perform not only the organ music but also some cantatas, which is requires some choir and orchestra and ensemble and so on. And then I had to take some leadership to other musicians, my friends and colleagues and so on. And in between, I became closer and closer to the conductor situation, actually.
In an international company like ours, we are working amongst people from all different kinds of countries and cultures. I know that despite your musical ensemble here in Japan, the Bach Collegium, you've been working with some of the world's most renowned orchestras, like the New York Philharmonics, the Deutsche Symphonieorchestra Berlin, the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, many others. Have you noted cultural differences amongst the different countries, and how do you deal with that? What are the specifics maybe of a Japanese musician or a Japanese orchestra and a US orchestra? Are there differences?
Well, of course there are differences, but first of all, what we are doing is the European music in any way. So that is, it doesn't make so much difference between the countries and so on. We all know the same music, more or less. But actually, the characters of the people in each country makes the procedure and the way of music making quite different. For example, in Japan is a little bit more rigid and a little more the discipline than, for example, say Dutch orchestra or the American orchestra and so on. But at the same time, American orchestra have slightly more spontaneity and also the flexibility in organizing and so on. But that is not only because of the difference of the people, but also the difference of the organization itself.
That's the perfect point for you to take over the speech and tell us a little bit more about conducting and how you do it. Masaaki Suzuki.
Yes.
Yours.
Thank you very much. I'd like to talk a little bit about the conductor function. And certainly you have seen many times, a guy standing in front of the orchestra, rocks the tail coats and, waving the arms and so on and so on. End of 18th century or the beginning of 19th century, there was no job called conductor, actually. This is a painting from the lexicon published in 1732. So this is a central guy is trying to conduct some ensemble, but he doesn't have any baton. He has only some rolled paper in his hand, and Probably he has not, he cannot be seen so much from the musician and so on. But still he looks like a leader, kind of. And most of the case, this kind of leader were composers at the same time. At the end of 19th century or the beginning of 20th century, the orchestra is a really, really huge organization. And the relationship between conductor and orchestra has changed completely in compared with this kind of 18th century. Probably you know this guy, this is Richard Strauss. That's one of the most renowned German composers at the end of the 19th century until the beginning of the 20th century. And apart from his wonderful achievement of the composition, his motion and his way of conducting is a kind of typical of the development of the huge organization of the orchestra, because he needed to count very precisely and just like a policeman on the crossroads. Apart from the wonderful aspect of the music life at that time, the orchestra organization became more and more stiff and more inflexible. And a lot of hierarchy has developed within the orchestra organization. By the middle of 20th century, many musicians have wondered if this is the right way to make a music. And also, more and more they played, for example, the composition in the past, like Johann Sebastian Bach or Mozart or Haydn and so on. And they realized the instruments, music instruments, used for this kind of Baroque composer or the beginning of the classical era is different in the 20th century. So together with this kind of research about the music instrument, the organization of the orchestra has changed quite much. And now quite some orchestra specialized for Baroque music has made. So since 1950s and 60s, that is the beginning, starting time, and around the 1980s, so many musicians are specialized in Baroque music, not only the way of playing, but also the organizing the ensemble. Passion is actually to make, not only to make music, but the music must be very lively and also speaking very actively to individual. So in this kind of Baroque musician, the performance is very well based on the individual passion of research and also trying to be better. I think that's very important for us, the musician, to share the music value together and to speak each other with the music, and also to carry on this music to the audience and to share with the musicians and audience together this kind of wonderful value. Thank you very much.
Paul, thanks. You've been flying in from Australia, and you have an amazing story to tell. You are a martial arts expert and a mountain climber, and that is special enough. I mean, who can claim to be a mountain climber and martial arts expert at the same time? But what's really special is that you do this with one arm only, that you lost your arm, you said at the age of 3 weeks only. How did it happen?
Well, I was born with cancer, Florian, and that's very unusual, and it was a 1 in a billion situation. And of course, when I was born, nobody knew that I had cancer, and I went for a checkup at about 10 days of age, and the doctor discovered a little lump in my upper right arm, and he wasn't concerned. He thought it was just nothing to worry about. He told my parents that don't think it's anything to be concerned of, but let's check it out. Turned out to be bone cancer, and at the age of 3 weeks, they amputated my arm, and I was very fortunate to survive that operation. So, and of course now at 53, I look back at that, and I don't see myself as being disabled at all. I'm not, but I must say, if anything, probably losing that arm set me on a path in my life that actually enabled me to be much more and do much more than I ever would have as a, for want of a better word, able-bodied person.
Mm-hmm. It happened to you at a very young age, basically before you could even think or remember that. But I guess it must be a tough time, especially as a kid, when other kids have two arms and so on. Was there a time in your life when you became confident? You said, "I still can reach everything," or was that your character from the beginning onwards?
It was a funny thing as a little boy because I come from a very good family. You know, a poor family, but a loving family and a supportive family. And of course, growing up with one arm, I was treated just the same as my brothers and sisters, and I didn't feel in any way, shape or form disabled. However, when I went to school, that's when I met other kids. And it was meeting other kids that held a mirror up to me, and I saw the reflection of, oh wow, I'm different. And I got treated differently. I had a wooden arm with a metal hook on the end, and my nickname at school was Captain Hook. And I occasionally got bullied and teased. But at the age of 8, I discovered martial arts. And it was the turning point in my life. Martial arts definitely changed my life.
Mm-hmm. You have, saying that you learned martial arts, I think you have a black belt in 3 different martial arts professions, so to speak. And you must have dedicated a real great amount of your life to learn this and also learn the culture. I think you're speaking to that. Has that helped you to shape your mindset to what you're able to do today? Is martial arts like the foundation?
Absolutely, Florian. I'm scared of what the audience is going to think in about 20 minutes from now because I'm going to tell them my mindset, and I hope that they get something from it. And it's a mindset that I think a lot of people deep down might already have, but I'm certainly not ashamed in telling my story sincerely and passionately. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've learned from those mistakes, and that's all part of the story in the martial arts way too. It's thrilling for me to be here because we're in Japan, and of course most of my philosophies came from the great Miyamoto Musashi, who was, of course, I'm sure my Japanese friends know who that is, Musashi Miyamoto, Gorin no Sho, the Book of 5 Rings. And it was really the study of that side of martial arts, the philosophical side, that really surpassed the physical side. And in climbing Everest, it was the same thing. I climbed Everest with my spirit and my mind, definitely not my body, as you can plainly see. And I think that we all have that spirit.
Please welcome on stage Paul Hockey.
Wow, it's such an honour to be here in Japan. I had a passion for martial arts, but I was an armchair climber. I was fascinated by high-altitude mountaineering. And I'm sitting there with my friend drunk, telling him about Mum, and I heard myself say to him, his name's Luke. I said, you know what, Luke? I want to climb Mount Everest. I want to get a world record. I want to raise money for children's cancer research. And I want to form an expedition and do it in my mother's name. And my mother's name is Dorothy Bridge. I got on a plane with my wife's permission and went to New Zealand and studied the art of mountaineering. And the art of mountaineering is very similar, in fact, almost the same as martial arts. You're living in the middle of now with mind, body, and spirit. I asked my New Zealand climbing instructor how I can climb Mount Everest, and he said, you can't. You don't have any experience. It's impossible. I said, yeah, it was impossible to ride a motorbike, you know. It was impossible to teach martial arts. He said, I tell you what, if you can climb Mount Aconcagua in the Southern Hemisphere, the highest mountain in the Southern Hemisphere in the Andes in South America, if you can do that, I'll let you go to Mount Everest. I went to Aconcagua with Angdorji Sherpa, one of the best Sherpa climbers in the world. And we climbed Aconcagua together perfectly. We almost died on the way down. That was my bad. That's another story. But we didn't. And he told my New Zealand climbing teacher, he can do it. Why? It was all my martial arts background. It was all Gorin no Sho. It was all Miyamoto Musashi's teachings. Where you're not afraid to take risks and make mistakes to get ahead, you can do anything. How do I know? Because I went to Mount Everest in 2004 and I got 500 feet from the summit. I saw 4 dead bodies. I lost 15 kilos. That was a good thing. I came home. I didn't make it. The money was gone. Fate stepped in. I was training on this mountain road. The mayor of Cairns, where I come from, the mayor saw me. He pulled over and he said, "What are you doing? Are you going back?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "What do you need?" I said, "Money." He spoke to the Cairns newspaper, the Cairns Post, and they said, "If you're going back, we'll sponsor you." I became the first, for want of a better word, disabled person in the world to climb the north face of Mount Everest. After becoming a motivational speaker, I managed to rescue my house and pay back all my bills. My kids are now 24, 21, and 20. They're all doing really well. I defied the dream takers, and I know you can too. And how did I do it? I combined the traditional Japanese Bushido work ethic with open-minded free thinking. I wasn't afraid to take risks. Thank you.
Now you're looking at a room of people, of leaders that lead big departments, that oversee big budgets of money and so on. What would be, if you have any, advice for them to develop the passion and discipline to achieve their goals? They are certainly completely different. And they're not comparable to a mountain. But is there something?
I believe good leaders know when to lead, and they know when to step back and let someone else lead. I also believe that as leaders, the best way to teach anything is to, in my opinion, be a guide, not an instructor. Think of the people who work for you as being your children. If your children are working for another leader, would you not want that leader to be understanding and kind and patient, but also firm and direct and be a good guide? So I would say that's where the passion comes from.
Today I want to have a third speaker, and it's a speaker that doesn't come from outside of the company. He is one of ours. He's a colleague that works in the R&D department very diligently. He's dedicated to his job. He does this with passion, I think. But he has another big passion, and that is running. Welcome on stage, Wataru Iino. Where are you? Come here, please. Welcome. Please have a seat. How did you start? How did you?
So when I 7 years ago, when I was working in Stuttgart, Germany as an expert, then I went every day. I went to the cafe for studying the languages. Then I ate ice cream every day. So then it made me fat. Then I gained plus 5 kilograms. Then okay, I should do diet. Then this is my start.
So you started, so let me just fix that. You started running because you were too fat eating ice cream in Germany.
Exactly, Then finally, so I could succeed my diet, but I could not stop the eating ice cream because it's a Stuttgart, the ice cream is very nice. Okay, so I should think about another approach. Then okay, keep on running.
Well, lucky you didn't end up in Italy. I believe the ice cream is probably better there. How do you find time to train for these marathons? I mean, I believe you must be probably running and training every day to achieve a marathon of 300 kilometers. How do you train?
And the distance between my home and here is 18 kilometers. Then so every day, so I run the distance. Almost every day.
So you run to work.
Exactly.
And in the evening you run back.
Exactly.
You save the monthly train ticket.
Also, every weekend, so I have much more training. Sometimes I go to the Nagoya in Aichi Prefecture from here by running.
No kidding!
It's quite hard. But it's too much.
What do you think while you're running? I mean, that's a lot of time.
Of course, it's a training is so hard, but after the training, so I can eat everything. So, so then,
Amazing. Please welcome on stage, Wataru Iino.
So this is my mindset for running. The first is curiosity. I'm always inspired by famous runners constantly, and I compare their accomplishment with my ability, the thinking if I can also do that or not. The second is passion. Then after comparison, so if the possibility is not zero, okay, I will start the training. So myself is ambition for winning. Then the ambition keeps my motivation for the long-term training. Then finally, challenge. Then, of course, the training is very hard, but there is no other sports than marathon in which effort count more than talent. Yeah, and effort never fails me. So that's why, yeah, I could keep it. So that's why I can expect my good result. Of course, challenge comes to some risks. So during a race, I get injured, scar, and dehydration, heat stroke, and so on. So at that time, so I ask myself, so why? So yeah, I go back my mindset to passion. This cycle keeps me running.
Before I ask you further questions, I'm quite sure there are a lot of questions here in the room, and of course also questions to our other speakers. So I would open the floor. We have a microphone, so please raise your hand and ask anything you want to the four gentlemen. Thank you for all being here so far, and now, yeah, I'm waiting for your questions.
I took some risks climbing mountains, and I'm really curious, what were you thinking when you climbed the second step? More details on that. It is very risky. Each step might be your last one there. So,
good question, Paul.
Could you give me some more details on that?
Thank goodness that nobody was filming it, because it was pretty ugly. I got up there, but it was awkward and it was difficult. And I'd take this opportunity to mention Nima Sering, who is a Sherpa climbing partner of mine, and he was by my side. And he was going to film it, but it was too difficult to climb and film at the same time. And to give you an example, there was a point where I couldn't get over to a point where I had to get. I just couldn't. So the only way to do it, and as a climber you're going to think I'm crazy, and I probably am, I took off my oxygen mask and put the rope in my mouth. And of course my tongue and my mouth froze to the rope. And then when I made it, but when I took my mouth off, I was bleeding. But when we got to the top of the second step, Nima was very concerned because I was bleeding. But I said to him, we climbed the second step, we're probably going to summit, so we high-fived. But I was so deep into the middle of the moment that nothing existed. It was just every movement. And we had a very good fixed rope. I had a very good harness. So I was pretty confident that if I fell, I probably wouldn't die. But yeah, it's a good question, because that second step is very, very difficult to climb.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
When you conduct a new team, how do you balance this passive and active? That's my question.
Well, actually, my usage of the word openness is I'm not sure if it's right, but actually to stay spontaneous and to stay open-minded is very, very important to make music or whatever ensemble in whatever field. And actually, sometimes you must be very careful, to make you understood. Actually, we always be careful how directly we should make ourselves understood to the musician or other colleague. And so, in other words, probably honestly to yourself and to your idea or your feeling, whatever. So this kind of direct the feeling of to yourself and to others, it makes us always possible to communicate.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for coming.